Hello and welcome back to the Animator Guild podcast, the podcast for aspiring animators and artists where we talk about the creative process, respond to audience questions, and expand upon ideas which can't fit into a short YouTube video. In this episode, I want to talk about how to teach yourself independently, how to be maybe a self-taught animator. And more people nowadays are taking learning into their own hands, which is really great to see. What are some ideas that can help people who are taking learning into their own hands? That's what I've been thinking, and particularly when it comes to learning animation. And the thing with this is that it actually applies to all people and not just self-taught artists, even though I've prepared it with self-taught artists in mind. Because in art school, the teachers show you what you need to learn, but then you have to go and learn it, and you have to do that by yourself most of the time. So even in art school, it's more like the teacher's showing you the door and then you have to walk through it. You always have to be the one to actually learn it, to actually apply it. There's never going to be a time when someone holds your hand 100% through it. So I think that the ability to learn by yourself independently is something that everyone is going to need at some point. And also, learning doesn't stop when you graduate. You need to keep learning. You need to continue learning. You never stop learning. If you do stop learning, then you die. The curious artist inside you dies when you stop learning. So I've laid out 5 or so points which will hopefully give you some ideas that might be helpful on how you can accelerate your remote learning over the internet. So what we'll talk about first, this is a brief summary of what we'll talk about. The Jin mentality, which is something I've just learned about, which I thought was quite a good idea. Finding a mentor, reverse engineering, obtaining feedback, and creating or using a learning structure. So first of all, the Jin mentality. This is something I heard recently from, it was a YouTube video, I can't remember which one exactly, but they talked about the Jin mentality and I was like, what's that? And it stands for Google it now. So I thought that was brilliant. I think that we all need to develop a Jin mentality or a Jin approach. Google it now. When it comes to learning, and this is, I see this a lot in my sort of area of work with teaching people. I get a lot of comments asking me things which could just be Googled, and you'd get the answer within seconds. Things like software issues, I had this error, it was error, and then a string of numbers. What does this mean, Howard? So the thing is, it's not that I'm unwilling to help people answer these questions. It's just that Google is always going to beat me to it. If you ask Google, it can return you thousands of results within instants. So it just, for people who do that, it doesn't make sense for them to ask me a question like that. Most of your basic problems are just a Google search away. A majority of your problems, not all of them, but a majority, I'd say Google can help get you there quicker. And I understand that sometimes people don't want Google's generic answer. They may want my specific answer, my interpretation, or someone's in particular, their take on a certain thing. But just think about how long that could take. And, all that time when you're waiting, that's slowing you down really in your learning process. So get good at Google searching. It's not actually something that is so straightforward all the time. There are actually ways to improve your Google searching, and certain keywords that you find that if you use those keywords, it gets you better results. And also doing it in iterations. So don't just settle with the first thing you think of typing into Google, but actually maybe a few down. Try some variations and see what happens. Things like that, I think, are good practices. The information is always out there, but you've got to know how to use things like Google to be able to find that information. And also, I got to say, it's Google isn't the answer to everything. It doesn't have the answer to everything, and some answers are in libraries. And one of the great things about a library is that you can search for a book, you go to the location where that book is on the shelf, and you can look around that book at the other titles that are surrounding that book. And I love libraries for that exact reason. When I go to the library, that's exactly what I do. I find the book that I know will be like in the middle of a lot of interesting books, and then I browse those books on the shelf. And I've found some amazing information that way that you probably wouldn't be able to find on Google. The other limitation with Google is that it actually shows you the most popular result for something. It ranks them in order of popularity. So that is good for some things. It's good for finding verified knowledge, I suppose. But it's also got a limitation, and one of those limitations is creativity. It's the worst thing for creativity because it shows you what everyone else thinks of a certain thing. If you search in, I don't know, woolly hat, it's going to show you the most generic woolly hat first. And then last in the search results, it will probably show you the least generic. I don't know. It's not exactly like that, but it kind of has something to do with it. Another tip, I think, for using social media, not just Google, but the related things like YouTube. YouTube now is a great learning platform. If you previously used YouTube for entertainment, but now you're trying to use YouTube to learn about art, I think that's going to be really hard if YouTube keeps recommending you entertaining videos. It will be trying to put you off your focus, and I think that's just going to make it harder for you if in the recommended bar there are cat videos or something popping up because that's what you used to watch, and so YouTube thinks you still want to watch that. Or maybe you're subscribed to people that deliver on entertainment. It might be good to just create a new account. Don't delete the old account, you can still have it, but log into it when you don't feel like learning, perhaps, and use your new account and just make that account for learning about art and animation or whatever you want to learn about. So, okay, that's firstly what I want to say, some ideas I had about Google and Jin. Google it now. So next up, I want to talk about finding a mentor. When most people think of finding a mentor or shadowing a mentor, meaning like following around a mentor, they think about actually contacting someone in the local area and visiting them and spending each day with them, kind of helping them like an apprentice. And that is possible, but not for everyone. And I think especially if the person you want to, who you want to be mentoring you is high profile, they just won't be able to mentor you. They won't be available because they got stuff to do. they've got surrounded by a lot of people or whatever. And also things like location. I don't think there are many animators in my area. I'm sure there aren't. I'd have to travel into London to find animators who are like me in style. But times have changed, so you don't need to do that. That would be very difficult in the past. I actually tried to get a mentor for myself. I came across a guy whose style I really loved, and I said, "Can I, work for you for free so that I can learn your skills?" And we tried, but it didn't really go anywhere, unfortunately, because it's difficult to set that kind of thing up. I had to commute into London, and there were schedule conflicts and things. Anyway, times have changed. You don't actually need to meet your mentor physically. Now, instead of shadowing a real life person, you can now be mentored by the digital version of someone. Not in all cases, but in some. So as an example, for me, I consider Chris Do to be a mentor for me for business and social media, the way I run my business and my social media. And also Roberto Blake is another one who I consider to be a mentor. And this is because they put information out online for free. Loads of it, actually, like lots and lots of videos. And so, yeah, they're essentially my mentor. They've taught me so much, but they don't even know that I exist. I'm pretty sure they don't know. And that's amazing. So that's so much easier. And the other great thing about that is that you can have many, many different mentors, many different experts mentoring you in a variety of subjects that you want to learn about. It's incredible if you think about it that way. Imagine having that in real life. Like, imagine having a council of like a dozen different experts in the fields you want to improve on, and they're just there giving you advice. Okay, it's not tailored advice, but that's kind of like what a king would have. And that's what we get. That's what we all have access to nowadays. So related to this idea of virtual mentoring, I think, is the idea of reverse engineering. And here's an example of what I mean by reverse engineering. So I'm working on building some online courses right now. And my main case study profile, which I'm reverse engineering, is a website called masterclass.com. You might know them. They put up a lot of pre-roll ads on YouTube with like these amazing masters of their crafts, and they teach video lessons online, which you can buy on as courses. And I just love everything that they come out with. I've got their annual membership, so I can watch all of the videos as like an all-you-can-eat type plan for annually paying to do that. And so I consume a lot of that. But I also think that the way they run it and the way they market, the way their website is, and the way they design their courses is really, really cool. And so no one from Masterclass is personally mentoring me, but the evidence for what they do and how they do it, most of it is out there in the open. It's for all to see. All you have to do is look at the site in that kind of way and think, how and why did they make that decision? And this has informed so many of my decisions when making courses and teaching online. For a while, I was concerned with having a dark themed website. A dark theme meaning like a dark colored background, not like the subject matter, but the color of the background of the website being a dark shades. And even though I like dark themed websites, I was worried that my site wouldn't be taken seriously if it was dark colored, and it would badly impact sales and engagement. And then from Masterclass, I looked at their website and I realized hey, they have dark themed website, so it's not true, because they're a very successful business. They've got teams of people working for them. They're extremely good at what they do, and they're making a lot of money. And so it's not true that dark themes have that effect that I thought they did before. It's just that if you have a dark theme, you need to do it well. And also, dark themed websites are well suited to video content specifically. So if you look at YouTube's new theme and Netflix as well as two other examples of video content websites, hey, look at that. You know, it's dark themed. And my stuff is video, mostly video as well. So it actually works very well. But I worked all that out without actually asking anyone any questions. I just looked very carefully at the website, and I mean, that was a very obvious one really when I think about it, but there are other small things that I look at: the way they vignette their pictures, the kind of fonts and types they use, the structure, the sales copy, all of that. I absorb it all, and I think about how they're doing that, and what can I borrow from that, what can I take and apply to my own. I wouldn't make an entire carbon copy, but I would certainly learn from it. So the information is all there, you know, it's all there on the surface. You don't need someone to tell it to you in most cases. It's all just right in front of you for you to learn from. Okay, feedback. This is kind of jumping onto a different topic. I suppose it's related to mentors a little bit, but feedback is important, and it is something that you get at a conventional art school, which you don't automatically get when you're teaching yourself. Feedback can be pretty easy to find online, but I think the hard part isn't finding it necessarily. I think the hard part is the internal struggle of putting your artwork out there to be criticized. It's like jumping into cold water, but it is really good for you, and it will improve your art very fast if you're able to do it. And I suggest everyone gets used to it, of putting your work up in places where you can get feedback. Like, I'd rather take my artwork to someone and ask them for their opinion before I've shown my artwork to the entire world. It gives me a chance to fix mistakes before it really matters, you know. Because if you can do that and get feedback and just have that happen while you're still in the working phase and not in the presenting phase, then it's like anything goes at that point. You know, your film or your piece of artwork can look really bad right up until the moment where you unveil it to everyone, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it looked bad during the process. But yeah, once you've gotten over your internal struggle, all you have to do is visit forums and post your artwork and invite people to criticize it, to invite them to give you critical feedback, I suppose. And one place that you can do that is the Animator Guild community Discord. If it's animation that you want to improve on, which I'm guessing it is if you're listening to this podcast, then the Animator Guild community Discord is perfect for you. And we do this kind of thing all the time. We have works in progress channels and the showcase channel where you can post your artwork, and you just, if you want the critical feedback, then what you do is you post your work, and then you just put below it, I'd love to receive feedback if anyone has the time, or something like that. You know, be nice about it, ask for it, and then you're more likely to get it. In fact, you probably won't get it if you don't ask. It's kind of like a code of etiquette that, you know, you got to invite people to comment on it before they do. And a tip I would give is only ask for feedback on finished work, because otherwise let's say, well, you can ask for feedback on unfinished work, but there's a problem that you get with that, which is that, let's say you've drawn a character and you haven't yet drawn the legs. Well, every single person you're going to ask for feedback will tell you you should draw the legs in. And that doesn't help you because you knew to draw the legs in. But if it's finished, then they'll give you all the good stuff. So I recommend actually taking it to as far as you can by yourself before you get the feedback. That's not always possible. Like maybe you want to, let's say you want feedback specifically on how you construct the body of your character or something. Then obviously it's different. And then you might have to give some specifics on how you want it changed. And also ask a lot of people when you receive feedback from someone you think and you think, wow, that was really good feedback. It gave me a lot of pointers to improve. Well, then become friends with that person and ask them if they can continue to give you feedback in the future. It's worth staying in contact with that person because you don't know how many of those kind of people you'll find. Sometimes it's kind of rare to find someone who actually gives really good feedback. Okay, so there's also a problem with, I think this is a problem with learning animation and learning difficult skills like drawing or animation in particular, because you don't just learn animation. You have to break it into principles. Like within animation, there are 12 principles of animation that that are established. And in drawing, it's much the same. There are these principles. And in design, there are principles. So if you're going to learn all 12 principles of animation, for example, you need to focus on one principle and just keep that principle in the front of your mind until it becomes second nature. It becomes instinctive. Eventually it will. And then after you've done that, after you've really spent the time to work on that one skill, then you can move on to the next principle. So every animation or piece of artwork you do, have like one principle at the front of your mind that's the focus for that piece. I mean, if you're learning drawing skills, maybe it's gesture, maybe it's proportions, maybe it's line weight. Maybe it's squash and stretch if you're learning animation principles. But like just do one at a time and make it really clearly focused on that thing. And I think that really helps. That's certainly what I've done every time in my animation process. I find I'm not good at multitasking. I can only learn one thing at a time. And that's kind of how learning works. That's how doing works as well. So you have to kind of learn to work with that. And that's something that I still do now that I think helps me to acquire new skills, is just break it down, focus on one, and repeat until you are able to do it instinctively, automatically. And then move on to the next one and keep doing it. Okay. Structure. So this is something I thought up because it's one of the hardest things perhaps with learning by yourself. There's no system of structure to impose on you if you are by yourself. And this has its benefits, but it's also quite challenging. It might prevent you from being a well-rounded artist, really. For example, like, how likely is a self-taught animator going to make the time to learn about art and film history without a structure to make him or her do so? Like, art and film history are really important, but they are the kind of task that would forever be put off until later. So a structured course can push you into doing things that you maybe would shy away from doing by yourself, and this can be a big advantage. You can find structure online though, and that's actually something that online courses can offer. So some online courses prefer to give you the freedom where they just sort of hand over all of the files to you in a zip file, and then they're yours to do whatever you like with. That's not structure. And actually my first online course, my Utapon Cubes course, Sakuga Destruction, that is in that kind of style, because I thought, well, I don't want to restrict people. If they want to learn it all in one go, who am I to stop them? I want to give them as much freedom as possible. But there are other courses online that actually try to give structure to the course, and they see the value in that kind of structure. And they've found that statistically, drip feeding episodes to people leads to better results with people, because it isn't as overwhelming. And if you give them all the lessons in a big zip file, they are actually less likely to open all of the files. It's just too much to take on at once, and you need to establish some kind of structure. And so that's one of the reasons the courses I'm working on are from now on going to be hosted on Teachable, which I feel is a good compromise between learning on your own time, in your own time, and providing a bit of structure to people. So maybe you can make a structure for yourself though. Like do a different thing on each day, or just say that maybe Saturday is my day for learning about drawing the human body or something. You can do that. I think it's obviously harder because there's no one to hold you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable. And maybe you can even fix that part of it and have a partner, have an art partner who hold each other accountable. And that's actually what I do with going to the gym. You know, I try and go with a gym buddy. So when I don't turn up to the gym, my gym buddy will be like, dude, what happened? Where were you? I was waiting for you. I was relying on you. You know, that would make me feel terrible. And that's why I never skip a day of gym. So, where was I? Yeah, for me personally, I really don't like breaking up my day or my week into little pieces. And that's actually one of the things I hated about school, is that I wanted to focus on one specific thing for days, weeks, or even months to get it right. So for me personally, I'd rather do it in a slightly different way. And the way I like to learn is with a kind of doing a blitz of a certain subject, or a retreat, I want to call it. I have plans to do this art retreat in the near future where I just travel to a remote location with my watercolors and just camp out there for a week or more and do nothing but paint watercolors and have that focus. And that's kind of like my fantasy right now that I'm gonna do. But yeah, maybe you're different with how you like to learn, but I can tell that that's something that I like to do. I like to focus really hard on something while I'm doing it. And I'm okay with that for me because I know that I can stay on topic. I have the focus to be able to do that. But that's kind of where you have to learn about yourself. You have to learn, what kind of a learner am I? Am I a learner where I need to break things up and I need to supplement certain information that comes in? Like maybe you want to learn two things at the same time, kind of alternate between the two. So when you get stuck with one thing, you can go on to the second thing and try that for a little bit and then come back to the first thing. That might be something you want to do. And it all depends on how you learn. So pay attention to how you learn, what kind of ways you learn, what kind of personality type are you perhaps. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. First of all, you can follow me on whatever platform you like to listen to me on. I'm most active on YouTube, and that's also where I bring out videos. If you are really an amazing person, you can support me on Patreon, where you can pledge to pay a small amount every 2 weeks, which goes directly towards supporting the production of these podcasts. You can visit the links in the description and buy some of the cool products I recommend. Those are affiliate links, some of them at least, so I earn a small commission on some of them when you buy from those links. And you can visit animatorguild.com and buy my online course. I only have one out so far, but you can sign up to my email list to be notified when a new one comes out. Alright, thank you very much. I'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.